Perfect. All right, I see we've got a few people on already, and I'm sure some of you guys already have questions. Hey, Cyclone Mitch, first one. Good to see you, man. Glad you're able to join us. I'm sure some of you guys have questions. A little bit of a change of scenery today, but you got to do what you got to do when you're in this business. You gotta find the place to film and to produce content, even if your normal place is taken up. So our dorm room was not available today. Roommate was taking a nap in there, and he was going to be in and out doing a bunch of stuff. So we're out here in the commons of my dorm room up here. As you can see, we're sitting out here on the couch. So yeah, you might hear some noises. You might hear we got this vent that's extremely loud. You might hear a handful of doors opening and closing, but we're making do, and we're still going to sit out here and produce some great content and have a great conversation with you guys. So a little bit of a change of scenery today, and as you can see, it is Casual Thursday. We decided we're getting back into the routine of that. The show that I produce and the show that I'm a part of will take place later this afternoon, so we didn't have to get all decked out until for another couple hours. So it's Casual Thursday, and we are ready to break down some college football talk and to take your questions and comments and have a great conversation like we always do here at the Gridiron Expert. So I see we got Emperor of Rome on the line. It's good to see you, man. Glad you're able to make it this time. Hope you were able to get everything worked out with that hot water heater, man. That sucks. That's unfortunate, but hope you were able to work that out. And install that, I guess, and make sure things were kind of worked out there. So, but I'm glad you're able to make it. I'm glad you're able to be on. So we got a couple people on right now. I put it out on Twitter that we were going to be here about 12:15, and I think we're just a few minutes past that now, but then we're up to 5 now. So I'm glad you guys were able to join us today. So the last live stream that we had on Tuesday, and I'll say now that we've got about 5 people on. Before we get into that first, I will say that we will not be having a live stream on Sunday. So many of you may know it is going to be Easter this Sunday. So we're taking that day off fully to spend some time with family and friends and taking care of business there. It's a very important day. So we're gonna take Sunday off, so no live stream there, and I'll put a reminder out there on Twitter. But we're gonna go celebrate Easter with our family, and you guys should do the same, or just take some time off and rest. So that's what we're gonna do. And Emperor Rome, I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that everything's good now. That's just a pain, man. That really is. That's unfortunate. That really is. So I'm sorry you had to go through that and had to deal with that. But that's good, man. I'm glad to hear it. All right, so as I was about to dive into there for a second, last live stream, and we're gonna kick things off early. We got a decent handful of people on right now. Hopefully that'll grow. And like I said, we're always open to taking y'all's questions and comments. That's what thrives and really boosts these live streams and chats. But we closed the last live stream talking a lot about spring games. We talked a lot about the quarterback competitions at multiple major universities. You got Justin Fields and Tate Martell, and just the situation over at Auburn with 4 quarterbacks that could potentially be starting, although it's probably going to come down to Bo Nix and Joey Gatewood. The performances of Felipe Franks and Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma and Florida, respectively. So I talked a lot about that. And I said there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about. It doesn't really pertain to a certain university per se, or even a certain player, but it's just, I just want to pick y'all's brain on this. I thought it was funny. Spring game attendances. And, we talked about it multiple times when we were doing the last live stream about how spring games don't really mean anything. It's a great opportunity for programs that do have either they're ushering in a new head coach, or they do have a quarterback battle. That's a great opportunity to see how they play, how they react. If you've got a new head coach, it's a great way to see the new style, the new scheme that they might be bringing into this program. But it doesn't mean anything. There's no award for it. You certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt because it's just it's really all it is a big scrimmage. But it is open to the public. In some cases, and I think in most cases, they're free. It's free admission to go to these spring games because, like I said, basically all it is scrimmage. But listen to these attendance numbers for some of these programs. Some are amazing and some are just downright awful. And in my opinion, and we'll talk more about it in a second, in my opinion, if I had the opportunity to go watch my favorite team play in a scrimmage in the middle of April, maybe early March, I mean, football is football, guys. So even if it's just a scrimmage, you're still getting to watch your team. Might be a beautiful day outside. A lot of programs and universities have like kind of like a festival or some sort of entertainment prior to the spring game, or maybe even afterwards, like outside of the stadium. So just take the opportunity to go and legalize quack. Good to see you, man. And you're right. That was the first one I was going to talk about was Nebraska, and how incredible their attendance is at their spring game. Over 86,000 people at the Nebraska spring game, just for a scrimmage. Keep that in mind. It's just for a scrimmage, guys. And Nebraska, of course, getting a lot of hype this offseason. They are getting talked about a lot as potential. Some people are out there saying they could be a playoff dark horse. And look, I think Scott Frost is doing phenomenal things there. I mean, he's only been there for 1 year. They didn't have a great year last year. Nebraska returns a lot of starters. Scott Frost, we saw what he did at Central Florida, and I think he can do the same thing here at Nebraska, but can he do it in year 2? Like, look, I think Nebraska's going to get to a bowl game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, though, they can maybe win, 10, 11 games and compete for a playoff spot. That's not, to me, it's not realistic, even though they do have quite a bit of talent. But 86,000 people for the Cornhuskers for their spring game. It's unbelievable. The amount of people that showed up for that. That's a dedicated fan base. And Nebraska's fan base has always been extremely dedicated. I mean, I can't remember the exact number, but they had a record for consecutive sellouts for their football game. So they support them when they're really, really good. They support them when they're really, really bad. And that's something to be the Cornhusker fans should take a lot of pride in, and the program should take a lot of pride and should be happy. The fact that they had 86,000 people, man, that's unbelievable and almost unheard of for just a spring game. So obviously a lot of hype surrounding that program, and usually when there is a lot of hype surrounding a program, or you do have a new coach or something that people really want to see, that's when the attendance is going to spike. Mark Dudley, good to see you, man. Glad you were able to join the chat. Nebraska should get throttled by everyone in the Big Ten. Well, I'm not going to go that far either. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're a playoff contender, but I'm not going to sit here to say they're going to get throttled by everyone in the Big Ten. I think they will win a handful of games in the Big Ten this year, and you started to see a little bit more of competitiveness and some improvement down the end of the season from Nebraska. I mean, I can't remember what they started. What they like 1-6, 1-7 at one point. It was a horrible start. But towards the end of the year, you really started to see some improvement from the Cornhuskers. And I think that's going to carry over. We talked a lot about this on the last stream about momentum and teams carrying momentum into the next season. That can be high off of a national championship. It could be high off of a big-time bowl win. It could be because they're coming off a bowl win. They return a lot of starters. Nebraska, they're returning a great number of starters, but the fact that they went 4-8 last year, people are going to say they don't have any momentum. Well, the way that they started playing down the stretch, plus returning that many starters, I think they do have some momentum. So even teams that do so poorly do have a chance to have that momentum coming into the following season. And we'll talk about some other attendances here in a second, but I want to get to some comments here. Mike Myrick, good to see you, man. Go Knowles, as always. Glad you're able to join us. Comic Dude 45, yeah, nice new background. I think you weren't in the chat yet when we addressed that, but we're out here in the kind of like commons, the living area of my dorm room, my dorm building. I think my roommate was in there taking a nap, and I don't want to do that. I wouldn't want someone in there doing a live stream while I'm trying to take a nap. So come in here and like I said, you might hear some doors slamming, you might hear some people talking every now and then, but you make do with what you got, and I think this is going to work just fine. So, and it's a nice change of scenery. And it's Casual Thursday, so we're just switching everything up on this Thursday, this Wild Thursday here. But yeah, Mark Dudley, like I said, it's good to see you, man, as always. Mike Myrick, we're here. Legalized Quack, Emperor of Rome. And Emperor of Rome, I saw your comment about watching the NHL, and I'll get to that in 1 second, because I have been watching a little bit, especially of the playoffs. So I'll touch on that in a second. But going through the rest of these attendances real quick. So Nebraska by far blowing out the spring game attendance. Okay, Mike, good to hear. I'm glad. I was worried about it, man. Where I'm sitting, man, we've got this vent right above me, and it is just making this horrible noise. It's extremely loud. And I was like, that's going to carry over. But I'm glad y'all can hear it fine. If you can, that's all that matters for me. Nebraska blowing them out of the water. The second closest team to them, Alabama, of course. Alabama always has a pretty good turnout for this spring game. 62,000 people in attendance there to watch the Crimson Tide, and rightfully so. Arguably, or not arguably, they are one of the best teams in the nation, obviously. So 62,000 people there, very, very respectable. I don't blame him. I would go and watch that game. Getting to see Tua Tagovailoa, getting to see his brother out there, who's now playing for him. And if you saw that, Tua has to get. I mean, the back of his jersey is nearly taken up now because it's TU Tagovailoa because they have to distinguish between the two brothers. So when you have a long last name like that, I guess that's what happens. But Alabama at 62,000, Ohio State at 61,000. Penn State 61,000 as well, Clemson 60,000, and then you see a bit of a drop off there. And if you look at that, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, and Clemson have all been over the past couple of years national title contenders, have been in the hunt for the college football playoff, and are just dominant programs. Now, not to say Nebraska necessarily isn't, but obviously last year they weren't, and they really haven't been in playoff contention really at all since the playoff began in 2014. So there's something to kind of consider there. Calling 45, you're right about Nebraska. We were talking about them always selling out their stadium. It was a huge record. I think it's still going, if I'm not mistaken. But that's just such a dedicated fan base because some people don't win. I know that a lot of programs that when their school starts off, 1-6, 1-7, whatever Nebraska was to start off the year, they would have stopped going to games. But it's extremely impressive, the dedication they have. So going down the rest of the list here, we were talking about those powerhouses. 60,000, that is phenomenal for a spring game. But let's go down to the bottom tier here for a second. I think North Carolina only had a little over 1,000 people at their spring game. And I know sometimes it's because it is not a legit game. Weather can play a factor. If it's raining, the game's going to go on. But the fans don't necessarily want to show up because what's the point? It's just a scrimmage. If it's really cold, if it's really hot, weather and things do play a factor there. But I think North Carolina, with Matt Brown back as their head coach, so high expectations, a new era, there's a little bit of excitement around the program, and they only have like 1,000 people. Pittsburgh only had a little over 8,000 people. Arkansas, an SEC program, only a little over 10,000 people. And granted, yes, Arkansas was horrible last year, but so were a handful of these other teams that were able to get a decent number of people there. So, kind of embarrassing for an SEC program that is expecting to show improvement in Chad Morris' second year. And you're right, only 1,000. Jesus, that's low. I mean, I don't care who you are. I mean, I think you could maybe see some Sunbelt programs get a higher crowd and attendance for their spring game than North Carolina did this season. And that's just really embarrassing. And I was kind of appalled by it. I really was. Kentucky, after fresh off of a big year for them, only around 16,000. West Virginia, the Neil Brown era kicking off with the Mountaineers, a little over 19,000 for them. So not that great, but not horrible either. I mean, doubles Arkansas, almost triples Pittsburgh, and then everybody blew North Carolina out of the water. Notre Dame, 30,000. Florida, 39,000. Oklahoma, 50,000. And Tennessee, 51,000. And I think a lot of it comes down to fan base. I think a lot of it comes down to weather. I think a lot of it comes down to expectations. But at the end of the day, like I said, when it's free, people are going to go and show up. I really think it comes down to how dedicated your fans are. And you see it out of the teams that are big-time title contenders or teams that have always had a dedicated fan base, such as Tennessee, 51,000, Nebraska, 86,000. Teams like that get us such a high attendance, and that's just something to think about. And it really is crazy to think about, honestly. Comic Dude 45. Who has better corn, Iowa or Nebraska? Mark saying Iowa, but I wouldn't know. You're right. So we're talking Legalized Quack is talking about the attendance and the enthusiasm and the support that Nebraska gets. Pretty impressive. They kept it after some of those Mike Riley years, but Comic Dude 45 or Brandon making a very good point. Nothing on this planet can neutralize the enthusiasm and diehardness of Nebraska fans, and that is for anybody that is a Nebraska fan, or if you're a part of the Nebraska program, that has to just be encouraging, and just knowing that the whole state has their back and always will. Always has and always will. That's something to be said, and something that a lot of other programs across the nation, they can't say that. They can't sit there and say that their fans have been some of the best for X amount of years, because that's just not true. Nebraska can say it. I think Tennessee could even say it, even though Tennessee hasn't played great consistently, but not many people can say that. So, and Nebraska can. So, that was one thing I wanted to touch on. We didn't get to touch on that right before we ended the stream on Tuesday. but it still pertained to a spring game, and I, was going to relate some of that to like new eras and new coaches. I mean, Florida, we talked about Felipe Franks and the excitement and momentum they're bringing in. They had 39,000. Oklahoma, ushering in Jalen Hurts, had 50,000. Ohio State, Justin Fields, and Ohio State usually has a pretty good attendance anyways, 61,000. So, you look at some of the storylines that we talked about and the attendance that kind of corresponded with that, and you can, sometimes it makes sense. So, going from there. So, that was some good debate there, a little good topic there, just something to throw out there. Moving on a little bit, and if you guys read the description, what I'm trying to do now with these live streams is kind of putting what we're going to be talking about in each live stream in the description, and sometimes we don't get to all of it because you guys bring so many good questions and points that we focus more on those, and then we can say the topics that I have for a later live stream, and that's totally fine with me. I prefer talking about what you guys want to talk about more than what I have listed here, because we can get to that whenever. But one thing that I did want to talk about here before I read Mark's comment here, Nebraska screwed themselves by going to the Big Ten. They don't have a grip on any Texas talent, and that's what made them dominant in the 1990s. So, you're right, there's something to be said for the conference change. I could say that about a handful of teams, Mark, and I think, honestly, before I get to my next topic, I think a reason that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a handful of teams left the Big 12. I mean, because you think about that, Nebraska was in the Big 12. Colorado was in the Big 12. Texas A&M, Missouri were all in the Big 12. And I think for many of those programs, it was a good move. It made sense sometimes geographically, money-wise, competition-wise. But I think a lot of people thought they were going to start seeing the end of the Big 12. It started to fall apart. So Nebraska got out when they could. Colorado did. Texas A&M, Missouri both going to the SEC. Where in my opinion, for the SEC, when they switched over, I think in 2012, 2013, still at that time being one of the most dominant conferences in the Power 5, Texas A&M and Missouri have both done a pretty good job of competing in that league. Missouri winning the SEC East multiple years, 2 years in a row. Texas A&M never winning the West, but beating teams in the West. Haven't lost to Arkansas since 2011. They have beaten Alabama. They've beaten Auburn. I think they've beaten everybody in the West, if I'm not mistaken, at least once. So they've done phenomenal. So you're right, but Nebraska did screw themselves by going to the Big Ten, because we all know that Texas, I would say that two of the biggest hot spots for college football talent are Texas and Florida. The South, period, is the biggest hotspot for college football talent. And you've got to, if you are in the South or even in the Midwest, you have to be able to recruit in those southern states. And Texas, by far, being the biggest one, because we know how important and how serious people take Texas high school football. And that's not that I'm not saying the talent is because of that, but Texas high school football is such a big deal. There are so many big-time programs in Texas that produce such big-time talent, and if you don't have a grip on that state, or at least in some areas of that state, especially when you are a program in the Midwest or the South, you're going to have some problems. That's why teams like LSU, Arkansas, obviously any team in Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, those places that are very close to Texas have to get a stronghold on parts of that state, or at least get them in contention and build good relationships with those people down there, coaches and the players in Texas, so they can recruit. And you're right, comment dude. California also a hotbed for talent. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland to a lesser extent. Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about South, period, would be Florida and Texas, but if you want to go nationwide, absolutely, California, no doubt one of the biggest ones, and you've got major programs out there. Not very often that you're going to see some big-time players out of California come way east, out towards, like the SEC, maybe even the Big 12. California, you're going to see most of those guys stay in the Pac-12 area, most likely go to a place like UCLA or USC, but it is not unheard of to see someone go way away from California. That's why you've got to have a solid recruiting staff. You've got to have a solid coach that can recruit and a staff put together, because you never know when you're going to find the next big time player that could be all the way out in California, but here you are sitting in the middle of the Midwest. You don't be afraid to go try and snag those players from miles and miles away. So you're exactly right. So one thing I was going to talk about here is a couple of days ago, 24/7 Sports put out a list of their top 10 quarterbacks in college football. And, you know us, you know me. We love rankings. We love predicting. We love rankings. And honestly, what we do a lot here on these live streams is we sit down and we take a look at these rankings that have been given to us by maybe a site like 24/7 or 247, Athlon, CBS Sports, ESPN, whoever it may be, and we break it down and we get your opinion and I share my opinion on these. And so 24/7 Sports put their top 10 quarterbacks out there, and here's the list. I'm going to name it to you, kind of tell you my thoughts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well before we dive into our biggest topic of the day, unless we get a handful of comments and discussion from you guys. So 24/7 Sports top 10 quarterbacks entering 2019. Number 1, Trevor Lawrence from Clemson. Number 2, Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama. Number 3, Jake Fromm at Georgia. Number 4, Justin Herbert from Oregon. 5, Jalen Hurts, now at Oklahoma. 6, Sam Ehlinger at Texas. And then they have 3 group of 5 quarterbacks in their bottom 7 through 10. So we have De'Aaron King, the quarterback at Houston. Jordan Love at 8 from Utah State. 9 is Justin Fields, of course, now at Ohio State. And then 10 is Mason Fine, the quarterback at North Texas. So 3 group of 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 quarterbacks in the entire nation. Now, I will say this. I think their top 2 is undisputed. I think, yes, Trevor Lawrence at 1, Tua Tagovailoa at 2. And some people may say those need to be switched. Some people say maybe Tagovailoa should be 1, Lawrence should be 2. But after the performance that we saw from Lawrence over the course of this season, especially the way that he performed in the ACC Championship all the way through the National Championship, I think it's undisputed that he should be the number 1 quarterback in the nation. And I think, honestly, when we've talked about this multiple times, you guys have talked about it multiple times, you're going to see time and time again those 2 quarterbacks being kind of talked about as the top 2 Heisman contenders. Unless some dark horse emerges, I think Justin Herbert could be a guy that competes for the Heisman this year. But those are the top 2 quarterbacks in the nation, without a doubt. And I would love to see them face off again. Comic Dude, yeah, Shane Buechele from Texas. If I'm not mistaken, he went to SMU. If I am not mistaken on that, he transferred from Texas and went to SMU. And a phenomenal move by him. 1, staying in state, and 2, going to a program in a group of 5. Yeah, so thank you, Emperor of Rome, for clarifying that. So he did go to SMU, a group of 5 program that needed a quarterback because Ben Hicks, the quarterback from SMU, transferred to Arkansas to play with his former head coach in Chad Morris. SMU really needed somebody. I believe Sonny Dykes is there now, so they had that coach there that they needed a new quarterback and they needed one fast. So that's going to give them, I think, a little bit of a boost here. And I'm not going to say SMU is going to maybe even make a bowl game this season, but it is a good opportunity for him. And he was not, last year, we had talks of whether it was going to be Buechele or Sam Ehlinger at quarterback for the Longhorns. And Ehlinger just kind of took off and ran away with it. I mean, it was never even close after that. So a good move for him, for a guy that is talented enough, just wasn't talented enough to play for arguably the biggest program in the state of Texas. So looking at these top 10 quarterback rankings, though, as I said, I agree with the top 2. I agree that Lawrence is 1. I believe that Tagovailoa is 2. Jake Fromm at 3. Look, I think he's a very talented quarterback. I'm not going to lie. And he deserves, no doubt, to be in the top 10. I don't know if he's number 3 worthy. I don't know if he's Heisman Trophy worthy, as some people think he could be entering this season. I don't know if he's first-round draft pick worthy, as some people may be calling for if he decides to leave after this 2019 season. I would put him in my top 5. 3 might be a little high. I would have probably personally put Justin Herbert above Jake Fromm. And Fromm, as I've said over and over and over again, and people will look at this and they'll say, oh, he's biased towards Georgia. He doesn't like Georgia. That's not the case. I've said time and time again that I think Fromm is one of the most accurate and precise quarterbacks in the entire nation, without a doubt. I do think that he did a phenomenal job stepping in for Jacob Eason when he went down a couple of years ago. But I also think that Georgia's defense and their running game played a major, major role in their success that year. Nothing to take away from Jake Fromm, because he did a lot last year, keeping them in contention for a college football playoff spot all the way up into the SEC championship game. But I don't know if he'd be 3. I might put Herbert ahead of him, a guy that I'm a huge fan of, if he can stay healthy. That's the biggest key for Oregon this entire season, is he's got to stay healthy. He got hurt a little bit last year. Oregon was a couple plays away, a couple games away from having a very, very special year last year. Even though we're calling for a very special year this year, it could have happened a year earlier than it should have. And he surprised a lot of people by coming back for his senior year at Oregon. And that's a huge boost for them. Oregon would not be getting near as much hype. I wouldn't be giving them near as much hype had he chosen to leave after last season. So he's sticking around. Jalen Hurts at 5. Some people may disagree with that. I may have even put, honestly, Sam Ehlinger ahead of Jalen Hurts because I can't remember the exact number, but there was a stat put out recently breaking down some quarterbacks from last season about the amount of yards, percentage of yards, that were, I'm trying to think of the right word, that were contributed by a certain player. And you look at, I think they had Sam Ehlinger, they had Dwayne Haskins, they had Tua Tagovailoa, they had a handful of players. Well, Sam Ehlinger had the highest percentage of yards given by a player. He produced the most amount of yards percent-wise by a quarterback out of any other quarterback in the entire nation. The other quarterbacks that they listed were all Heisman finalists. So, and he wasn't, obviously. He was not a Heisman finalist last year. So they're saying, is there a chance that he could be a Heisman finalist this year? If he was that good last year, kind of got overshadowed, is there a chance that he could be a Heisman finalist? Because after all, Texas is back, right? Some people think so. I may have put Ehlinger above Hurts. Now, Oklahoma-Texas rivalry there. Hurts, though, deserves to be in the top 10 because while some people give him a lot of hate, the man is a good quarterback. I think he still needs to work on his mechanics. I still think he needs to work on the throwing aspect, which I know is extremely important as a quarterback, but he's very dangerous on the ground. And I'm not saying he has a bad arm, but I think that's why Tua definitely beat him out. Tua can run a little bit, but he's more of a pocket passer, and he had one hell of an arm. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, does not. He's got to work on his accuracy, but he is more dangerous on the ground, and that's really going to benefit Lincoln Riley and this Oklahoma offense, who have kind of used a similar type of quarterback last year in Kyler Murray. So maybe you swap Jalen Hurts and Sam Ehlinger. D'Eriq King, Jordan Love, Mason Fine, the 3 group of 5 quarterbacks, all very, very dominant, very, very productive, very, very tough to stop. D'Eriq King is going to fit extremely well into Dana Holgerson's new offense. I know he battled some injury last year as well, so if he's back fully ready to go, he's dangerous both through the air and on the ground. Could lead Houston to an AAC championship. Of course, they're going to have to get through UCF, but that's extremely possible. Jordan Love over at Utah State, they put up some big-time numbers last year under Matt Wells, who is now the head coach at Texas Tech. So how he will be able to adjust to a new head coach at Utah State, that remains to be seen, but Jordan Love's still very tough. You remember that Utah State nearly pulled off an upset last year in Week 1 against Michigan State on the road. I think they took them 38-31, and that was when Michigan State was getting a lot of hype, including from me, as potentially being a playoff dark horse, potentially being a Big Ten title contender, and of course they fell in Week 2 to Arizona State and never really were able to regroup after that. And then Mason Fine at North Texas, one of the best passers, I think, in all of college football. I actually think I may have put him above D'Eriq King and Jordan Love and when it came to these group of 5 quarterbacks, just because of the I think overall he is the ideal quarterback. He can run a little bit. He's got a little bit of mobility there. He's got a heck of an arm. He's got the accuracy and the precision. I think I would have put him above D'Eriq King and Jordan Love, but what makes King and Love so dangerous is their ability to run more so than Mason Fine can. And Mason Fine had a phenomenal year with North Texas, and we actually got to see Jordan Love and Mason Fine go at it in their bowl game in this past postseason, and Utah State just annihilated North Texas in that one. And then, of course, final one there, and I'm looking at y'all's comments. We're going to make sure we address that here. But Justin Fields getting the 9 spot, and I don't even know if I would have put him in the top 10. And that was one of some of the comments that people were saying when this first list came out was, why Justin Fields at number 9? The guy hasn't played a full game of college football, let alone in a game that matters. The time that he played at Georgia was really nothing spectacular. It was games that they were winning big, so they didn't really need to worry about anything. It was a good experience for him, but it wasn't a game that mattered. Now he's going to Ohio State, one of the biggest universities, one of the biggest programs in the nation that has sky-high expectations every year. Why put him in at number 9? I'm not saying the guy's not talented, but I am saying, if you remember last live stream, we discussed his stats from the spring game: 4 for 13, 131 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown. But if it hadn't been for that 98-yard touchdown pass, he would have gone 3 for 12 for 33 yards, no passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. I don't know if that justifies a man being number 9 out of all the quarterbacks in the entire nation. Now, who would I sub in for him right there at number 9? I'm not sure yet. I'd really need to sit down and think about that. But I don't think Justin Fields is worthy of being the number 9 quarterback in the entire nation right now. I think he's still unproven. He's got a chance to prove us all wrong pretty early on in the season, within a couple games. Right now, I don't think it justifies putting in Justin Fields at number 9 in the top 10 quarterbacks in the nation. And they do that because he's a big name, and they do that because he is playing at Ohio State, one of the biggest programs, as I mentioned, in the nation. And I think, honestly, it is what is in a name. The name holds a lot of weight. To say you play at a school like Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, now Georgia, USC even, those type of universities hold so much weight that I think they get a little bit of biasness, and I think they get a little bit of extra attention from the media and from analysts out there. And personally, that's not right. I'm not, once again, not saying Justin Fields is a bad quarterback by any means. I think he's extremely talented, and I think he's going to do great things at Ohio State, but they got to give him time, and he sure as heck didn't show his best work in the spring game just this past Saturday. All right, so looking through the comments here, I know we got a couple, and I kind of went off on a tangent there, but if you guys disagree with those rankings, like I said, they're not my rankings. I disagree with a handful of them there. So if you disagree with them, share what your rankings should be, or who you think should be, who should switch, who should be higher, who should be lower. If you agree with it, say that you agree with it. That's why I enjoy rankings so much, is because they can always spark a very solid debate. Sometimes they're just flat out ridiculous, and you wonder how the heck the person that made those rankings has a job. And sometimes they're really, really good, and it makes a lot of sense. So it's just hit or miss, honestly. So looking through the comments here, yes, SMU Mustangs. Yeah, that's a pretty solid name, Emperor of Rome. And I wish, if you remember, SMU got the death penalty a long, long time ago. They were good back in the day, man. Back like 80s, 90s. They were a pretty solid football team back then. They got the death penalty. Really haven't been the same since then. But yes, a very solid name, SMU Mustangs. Are there any other grad transfer quarterbacks on the market we're hiring? That's coming 245 there. Well, I can tell you what, man. Y'all need a quarterback. Y'all need a big-time quarterback, because what was y'all spring game final score? Like 116 to 114? I know that's based on the way y'all do scoring. That's. But Sitkowski is probably not going to be your answer at quarterback. Yeah, it was a very weird scoring system. I didn't watch the Rutgers spring game. I'm sorry, but it was a very odd scoring system, and Sitkowski is not going to be your man for a while. So I know you're praying for a transfer quarterback, but will he go? Would any big time transfer quarterback choose to go to Rutgers? I know that would be on my list personally. You're still playing in the Big Ten. Rutgers isn't Group of 5 anymore. They are Power 5. So you're playing in the Big Ten, playing against some solid opponents. And my thing is, if I'm a player, especially a player that's going to transfer, I would want to go to a place where I can make a difference. And to go into a place like Rutgers that has struggled for so long, in recently at least, to go there, maybe make an impact, just get them to a bowl game. I know you would be thrilled with that, to get to go to a bowl game this year or maybe next year. So that's something that I think quarterbacks need to keep in mind, especially if those quarterbacks know that I'm not, such a hot market that I'm going to be an NFL draft pick, or if I am, I'm going to be low. Some people want to go to a school where they're definitely going to get recognized and boost that draft stock. And I think a big example of that would maybe be Kelly Bryant, who left Clemson. And the reason he left Clemson was obviously because Trevor Lawrence is the superior quarterback. There's no doubt about that. But he chose to go to Missouri. Even though Missouri is going to be on a bowl ban, which of course he did not know at the time, he's going to thrive in that system, in that type of offense under Barry Odom, and it's certainly going to boost his draft stock. Emperor of Rome, it's a very good point. Jake Fromm is very precise, is very solid, but lacks the clutchness of elite quarterbacks like Tua and Trevor Lawrence. And I agree with that. I would certainly agree with that. When I think of a clutch quarterback, I'm not right now. As I said, the top 2 quarterbacks are Lawrence and Tua, and if I had to choose a quarterback to lead me down the field for a game-winning drive, it certainly would be one of those 2, no doubt in my mind. George Stice, just saw you, man. It's good to see you. Yeah, I appreciate that about the new setting. Maybe if you guys like it this much, maybe we'll have to start coming out here more often. We're switching it up on a Thursday. Obviously, we're going casual because it is Casual Thursday, I wasn't able to film in the room today. So we decided to come out here, which if y'all like it so much, maybe we'll do it a little more often. But no, I appreciate it. It's good to see you, George. I'm glad you're able to join us today. always bringing some solid insight and comments there. So I appreciate you joining us on this Thursday afternoon. I know sometimes it can be tough to pop in the stream even just for a few minutes. So thank you for joining us. Read through the rest of the comments here. Legalized Quack. Okay, so your backup quarterback is making some huge strides, making Oregon fans feel a little more comfortable, and that's very important because with Justin Herbert going to be leaving after this year, especially if Oregon has a big time year. If Oregon wins 10 games, maybe even I'm not predicting. Let's say maybe they win 11. Maybe they win the Pac-12. Let's say that. It's unfortunate because you think, oh man, we have so much talent. Now we're going to lose our star quarterback. We're going to lose a handful of other players, and we're going to go back. Maybe we'll go back to 7 to 8 wins, which would be kind of disappointing. But if you made that point that you're feeling a little more comfortable with your backup, a guy that can come, and we talked about this in the last stream, backup quarterbacks that can come in and take over a program and keep up that type of success, that's extremely important. Even if you can just get that success after the year, like say Herbert leaves, even if you can just get success out of this guy for 1 more year, maybe 2 more years, give some time to recruit during that time, build him back up, and now you got another quarterback. It's just an endless cycle. It's not going to stay forever because no success will last forever. But that's extremely important. So I'm glad that you're feeling good about that. That's extremely important. And mentioning another transfer quarterback, Prince, 6'1". What's going on, man? It's been a while since I've seen you on these streams, man. It's been way too long. Where you been? But I'm glad you're able to join us, man. I'm glad you're able to pop in for a little bit. Like I just said, I know it can be tough popping in, especially in the middle of the afternoon with work or school or any other family obligations. So they work. I feel it, man. Same here. I struggle to sometimes get these live streams out. So, but I'm glad you're able to pop in for a little bit, man. It's good to see you. Legalized Quack making a point. Fink from USC entering his name into the transfer portal. Could potentially be another transfer. Whether or not, I wasn't too high on him at USC anyways, but Matt Fink, maybe he will do extremely well somewhere else. He needs to get out because it's looking like the job's probably going to go to JT Daniels in Southern California with the Trojans. So Matt Fink, a guy that has experience, a little bit of experience in the Pac-12, was highly recruited, was in the running for being a starter at USC, could play a major role in another Power 5 school if given the opportunity. And Prince, man, I appreciate it, man. I keep having to repeat the story, and that's all right. But this is out here in the common area of our dorm building, and we decided to switch it up a little bit on this Thursday, mostly just because I wasn't able to film in the room. But if you guys like it so much, maybe I'm going to come out here a little bit more often. Maybe I'll come out here maybe make it an every Thursday thing. Maybe make it Tuesday, Thursday. I don't know. I'm glad y'all like it. That's the only thing that matters to me. I'm reading through the rest of these comments here. So we've kind of caught it all up here. So Emperor of Rome. Okay, I forgot about your. Let me fix this. Hold on here, but forgot about your comment with the NHL playoffs, and I keep up with the playoffs like sparingly. I don't watch the NHL much during the regular season, but when the Stanley Cup playoffs kind of come around, I do like to get into it some. I really do enjoy that, but well, we saw a major upset here. What was it, the Lightning, if I'm not mistaken? I think it was the Lightning getting upset by the, what was it, the, trying to see, was it the Blue Jackets? I'm pulling this up on my laptop here. But I think that's who it was, the Lightning. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had the best record in all of, yeah, it was. So they had the best record in all of the NHL. And they were swept. That's the biggest thing, the biggest storyline that's come out of the Blue Jackets. Yeah, Blue Jackets, they were swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were the best record in the NHL, and yet here they are getting swept in the opening round of the NHL playoffs. So a major, major upset there. And that's why you have to have, in my opinion, that's why the playoff system in any sport is so important, because upsets do happen. And in a league such as the MLB, NHL, or NBA, when you play best of 7 series, that's important because, one game could be a fluke. Had the Blue Jackets had beaten the Lightning in one game, it could have been a fluke, but they won 4. not just 4 games total, 4 straight games. They swept the Lightning, so unbelievable there. I'm not huge fan, but I'm a fan of the St. Louis Blues, and I've started to become a fan of the Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, just because of the success that they had last year. The success they had last year in their first year in the NHL, making it all the way to the Stanley Cup. I was rooting for them to win that series, even though Ovechkin, I know, got his trophy, won the Stanley Cup, so I was really happy for him. But Emperor of Rome, I mean, who is your team? Were you a Lightning fan? I don't know. You said you were still salty about it, but I certainly start to keep up with it now as the playoffs are moving forward. A handful of good series on deck, though. I will say that. I will certainly say that. This has been a very, very exciting. And anytime you see a 1 seed and a team like that lose, I mean, that's very reminiscent of the Golden State Warriors a couple years ago, going 73-9, and then falling to the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. So yes, they didn't get swept in the opening round, but the best team, nearly unstoppable. Then they blew a 3-1 lead. Kind of reminiscent to me of what just happened to the Lightning against the Blue Jackets. So you are a Lightning fan. Okay, so I am sorry. I'm sorry. That's devastating. Tied the single season winning record and got swept. Go figure. Man, that's just how it happens sometimes, unfortunately. That's how sports works, and that's unfortunate. So I'm sorry for your loss, man. I know that's tough, because I would be, it's frustrating too. How do you get the best record in the NHL? How do you play so well all season long, and then when the playoffs run around, you gotta win 4 out of 7 to advance, and you get swept by the team that's the 8 seed or the 6, whatever, however many go. I mean, it's unbelievable. But that's the beauty of sports, even though it can be so painful sometimes, and so frustrating. That is what happens, and that's why I think a playoff system is important, as I said, because it wasn't a fluke. The Blue Jackets won 4, and they didn't just win 4; they won 4 straight. So they're legit. So, but I'm sorry for your loss, man. But it's been a good run, a good playoff run so far, and I'm gonna keep my eye on it. We'll talk more about it in future live streams as we get closer to the Stanley Cup Finals. But I'm having a blast keeping my eye on it, though. It's been a lot of fun. All right, so we're into the rest of these comments here. We were talking about the NHL a little bit. Tate Martell, Prince. Yeah, he did have a very rough spring game. We mentioned that in our last live stream, Prince, about the struggles that Martell and Justin Fields had at their respective spring games. Martell at Miami, Fields at Ohio State. And Martell, man, he was just doing god-awful. Martell, 4 for 11, 78 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, getting eaten by the turf monster. Having a handful of errant throws here and there. I mean, he was not himself, and there's even a solid chance that he might not even be starter at Miami come August 24th when they kick off against Florida. Many people are thinking that Jaron Williams could be the starter for Miami going into 2019. Maybe it would be N'Kosi Perry, who was the redshirt sophomore and does have playing experience at Miami. Maybe he will be the one that starts for Miami in week 1. And he was starting with the first team offense in the spring game. But you're right, Tate Martell was supposed to be kind of, not necessarily be the savior, but a guy who's going to come in and really give Miami's offense a boost that they desperately needed, because we were expecting that defense to remain extremely strong under Manny Diaz, and he did not show it in the spring game. But neither did Justin Fields at Ohio State. Give these guys time. They're getting adjusted to a new offense, a new team, a new setting. Give them time. They still got about 5 months left, 4 or 5 months left until the season kicks off. That's when you will really start to see, what these guys are made of. George Stice, my family does a college football pick-em for money each college football season. I never do very good. You got to help me this coming fall. Hey, man, you got it. You got it. Well, George, let me tell you something. You come back. By the end of this month or early May, we will have our date released for when our predictions are going to start. We will have a big announcement for that. So when those predictions start, George, you need to come out here and just watch every single prediction video. And when the season starts, if I make some prediction changes, you, of course, will be the first to know. Because I put that out on Twitter and I address it here on YouTube. So make sure you watch all those predictions, and I can guarantee you, I'm gonna guarantee you will win your family's pick'em, and you might make some decent amount of money this fall. So make sure you come back for that. I promise you, you're not gonna regret it. You're gonna want to come here. I certainly will help you out, though. That is our goal, to have some fun and maybe y'all have a little bit of money along the way. Freeman Allen, good to see you, man. I am doing good. I'm glad to see you. Hope you're doing well. I'll address your question here in 1 second about the playoff dark horses, but I'm glad to see you all the way once again from Germany. So thank you for joining us. Tiger Woods made a comeback before the U. Yes, he did, Prince. Yeah, he did. And I'm happy for him. And we talked about that on Tuesday. I got some tears in my eyes when I saw him sink that final putt. Just to see that comeback after everything that man's been through, it was really, really amazing. Emperor of Rome, I have a casual question for Casual Thursday. Do you ever wonder what we look like? I'm not gonna lie, Emperor of Rome. I mean, yeah, at times I do. I certainly do. But that's certainly not my business, And that's actually a really, really funny question, though. I like that. That was good. But I do wonder that sometimes. Obviously, there's really no way of seeing that unless, of course, we had you guys on the show, or you changed your profile picture, or whatever. But there's some YouTubers out there, that don't put their faces out there, or some Instagram page where it's a big face reveal or whatever, but or some guys have it where it's just graphics and they're talking over it, kind of like a podcast. And I'm not really much about that. I like to be transparent. I want people to see me. I want to be able to talk. I don't like just being because I think they would have the same question. If I was on here every time with just graphics and y'all never saw me, just heard my voice, you would have the questions. What does this guy look like? Who is the gridiron expert? Well, here I am. But sometimes I do wonder that. Who is Emperor of Rome? Who is Freeman Allen? Who is Prince 6'1"? So that's a good question, though. I like that. That was good. And maybe we should make that Emperor of Rome. Let's make that an annual segment here. Casual questions on Casual Thursday. Maybe we can have a handful of that. Just non-football related, non-sports related, just casual questions for a Casual Thursday. That was a good question. So you usually wear sunglasses during your videos. Yeah, remove them, man. I mean, I know a handful of people do, but yeah. And if you don't want to, that's up to you, comic dude. Obviously, I mean that's obviously up to you. I know a handful of people do that. They wear like a big hat, they wear sunglasses, they wear a mask. So you're seeing their body and stuff, but you're not seeing their actual face. And sometimes you gotta show off the good looks. Just saying. What else we got here, guys? Craig Pina, good to see you, man. I'm glad you're able to join us for a little bit on this Thursday afternoon. Like I said, as I've said multiple times, I know sometimes it can be difficult, so I'm glad to see you guys joining the chat and just talking a little bit and having some fun, just kind of joking around. Now I got a question here a second ago from Freeman Allen, and he asked me, and this was one of the biggest things. If you read a description about what we are talking about today, or just the list of topics, one of them was the college football playoff analysis, and that's actually even in the title, is college football playoff analysis. And just recently, the FPI, the Football Power Index, put out their kind of like their rankings, their top 10 rankings, and then teams that they thought had the best percentage chance to make the college football playoff. And I'm going to list the top. I think we got about the top 10 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got about 9. Top 9 based on percentage. All these guys they are giving double-digit chances to make the college football playoff this season. And your question was, who are my dark horses? Well, I can tell you because a couple of them are in these top 9 here. So 1 second. So we got a couple questions here. Yes, I do go to Arkansas State. Who's that from? Wazoo boys. Yeah. So thank you, Prince, for answering that for me. Yeah, Arkansas State in the Sun Belt, and we don't put too much stock into Arkansas State athletics per se. Especially here on this channel. Even if I went to a major Power 5 university, I mean, say I went to, let's just for example, let's just say Clemson. If I was at Clemson, I would not be talking all day about Clemson football. So we don't talk about all day Arkansas State football, and that's not something I put a lot of stock into here. Focusing more on college football as a whole, and focusing on the bigger stuff like that. Am I going to go to the Arkansas State spring game? Look, actually, to be honest with you, I don't even know if we've had it yet, or if we have. I mean, I've kind of been out of the loop. I've been focusing so much on this and then academics as well. If we haven't passed it, I will pass it. We actually just got, was breaking news today or yesterday, Arkansas State just landed a big-time quarterback transfer in Lane Hatcher, who went to Pulaski Academy here in Arkansas and Little Rock, and that's one of the better high school programs in the state of Arkansas, and at times has been in the nation. He was at Alabama, left. He was only a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school. Chose to go to Alabama, even though Arkansas State was offering him a full ride. And then shortly after that, he left Alabama, and he's now back at Arkansas State. And that's extremely important for the Red Wolves here where I go, because we just lost our star quarterback in Justice Hanson. And there were some kind of questions and concerns about who was going to be quarterback. Will the production be up to par? Will Arkansas State even compete for a Sun Belt championship? Last year was the year they were supposed to do that, especially with this being the first year that they implemented a Sun Belt championship game. And they did not. They did not make the Sun Belt championship game. They did make a bowl game, however. So if I'm available, or if it hasn't passed yet, yeah, my plan is to go and check it out. But we'll play it by ear. Like I said, it's hard to put a lot of stock, but maybe I can be one of the. Maybe we can beat North Carolina's attendance at the spring game. I think that'd be a successful day. So Freeman, you were talking about the playoff dark horses, and so here are the biggest percentage chances for making the college football playoff. And of course, it's no surprise that the top two teams that they're given the best chances are Clemson at 83% and Alabama at 71%, and that is not any shock whatsoever. I mean, those are the two teams that have met in the national championship, 3 of the past 4 years, and the other year it was in the college football playoff semifinal at the Sugar Bowl. So Clemson 83%, without a doubt. Alabama 71%. Now the rest, drastic change and drop in percentages there after Alabama. You have Michigan at 41%. Michigan above teams like Georgia at 40% and Oklahoma at 35%. And look, guys, I don't know. Clemson's good. Don't get me wrong. We talked about this, I think, last live stream. I've told you guys that I think Michigan's a good team. But every year, Michigan fails to win the big games. They choke against Ohio State. They fail in their bowl games. I mean, you can think about the Peach Bowl this year against Florida. You can think the year before that, I think it was, the Outback Bowl or something, where they blew a huge lead to South Carolina. They lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl a few years ago. I mean, Michigan has been unable to win the big football games. So they're giving them a 41% chance. If you were to take the 4 teams that they give the top 4 chances to, it would be Clemson, Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia. That would be your top 4 in the playoff. It'd be Clemson versus Georgia and Alabama versus Michigan if you wanted to seed them 1 through 4. I'm not, like I said, right now I haven't predicted Michigan's schedule yet. We are working on them now. We're in the works for a lot of teams, but I haven't predicted Michigan's schedule. But I'm probably right now would say they're not going to make the college football playoff. Yet they're giving them the FPI a 41% chance to do so. There's a lot of talent there, and if this is going to be their, we've said this in the years past, but Harbaugh's had them in a position to make it. I mean, a couple of years ago they were number 2, facing off against number 3 Ohio State. They win that, they go, because they're probably going to win the Big Ten championship. Had they beaten Ohio State this year, more than likely would have gone to the college football playoff. Weren't able to do it. They lost by 23. In a couple of years ago when they lost in double overtime, that was a heartbreaking loss. I think it was 30-27. Some say it was in controversial fashion, whether or not Ohio State got that first down or not. Regardless, there were other opportunities for them to win that game, and they were unable to do so. But Michigan, 41% chance. Oklahoma, 35% chance. LSU, 32% chance. Notre Dame, 28%. Oregon, 14%. And Florida, 10%. And that wraps up the teams that have a double-digit chance of making the college football playoff, according to the FPI, the Football Power Index. And so you were talking about dark horses, Freeman, a second ago, and I would say, you could consider Florida a dark horse just because they're in the same division as Georgia. And Florida, I'm telling you, has a lot of talent, and with Felipe Franks playing the way he is, and Dan Mullen really building this team up rather quickly, that date against Georgia in November is going to be extremely, extremely important, because not only will I think it decide who wins the SEC East, unless one of those two teams slips up in conference play prior to that, I think that the winner of that might have a very solid chance of making the college football playoff. Now, of course, the winner of the East will have to play Alabama in the SEC championship game. And then you start getting into playoff controversy. Well, it's, say the winner of that Florida-Georgia game is a one-loss team entering the SEC championship, and say they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship. So now you have a two-loss Georgia or Florida team, and say their two losses were to very high-quality opponents. Or maybe it's just one loss. You have to sit there and wonder. But I think Florida's a legitimate dark horse. Oregon's getting a lot of hype just because of the amount of talent they return back, Justin Herbert, and the defense that is drastically improving. 14% chance there. I think they're a dark horse. Some people have given, they're not listed here on this list, some people have given A&M, Texas A&M, a chance at being a dark horse. Utah, a chance of being a dark horse. But I think my top two, if you want to call them dark horses, would be Oregon and would be Florida. Those are my two that I'm really, really going to be keeping my eye on and just waiting to see if they are able to progress. And maybe when we get to the beginning of November, which is really when the college football starts to get really hectic and the most important, if they're still in the running by that point. So I think those two. We got some more comments here. What's up? We got? Not worth watching the Rutgers spring game. It was boring. At least you were on TV for a few occasions. Well, that's the highlight of your day, right? I mean, that's important. You were going to be on TV. So you can point yourself out. I mean, I caught some of the highlights. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I didn't watch any of it. I mean, like I said, I knew the score was 116, 114. A very odd scoring system. I was able to watch some of it. Flashes of brilliance. And like you said, a very heartwarming moment there. I believe it was at Rutgers where, they had the two patients out there, like cancer patients or something like that. They were able to throw the touchdown. It's like 99 yards, 100 yards, something like that. So that was a really heartwarming moment. I love it when programs do that. At their spring games. You've seen it multiple times. It's happened at Nebraska, it's happened at Arkansas, it's happened now at Rutgers, and plenty of other universities across the nation where they allow that to happen in a spring game. Just a great moment for those kids, like you mentioned earlier. So I know it's a little off topic, but yeah, I never plan on going back and watching in-depth film about the Rutgers spring game, but yeah, I guess you're right. Being on TV does count for something. All right, Emperor of Rome, 20 years old, 5'8", skinny, pale, green eyes, beard, hair is shoulder length, and dark brown and curly. And were you in Lord of the Rings? Prince asked. That's funny. All right, so that was good. That was good detail there, Emperor of Rome. So I can kind of picture you now. Then I'm gonna go back and watch Lord of the Rings tonight, and then I'll maybe have a better picture in my head. So. Well, that's perfect. That's perfect. Good. That was a very, very solid question. I've never been asked that before. So that was a really good question there. So I appreciate that. We'll try to make that an annual segment. The casual question for the Casual Thursday. I really like that. And what better place to do it than sitting here on the couch, right? So we wrapped that up. We wrapped up these college football playoff percentages based on the FPI. And the FPI, guys, I'm a fan of it. If you guys had like the ESPN app, which I'm sure many of you do, you can go, when football season gets close around, you can look at your team, or any game for that matter, and the percentage that they're giving them to win. So, the national championship, maybe they were giving, at the time, Alabama a 55% chance to win, or 55.8% chance to win. They had the meter there, and they kind of come around. And I'm a huge fan of that because it gives you an idea. But really, numbers, when it comes to that, they don't mean anything, because upsets happen all the time. They're giving you the odds to win. And the thing I love even more, personally, is the in-game probability of a team winning. So, if a team gets up 14-0, maybe their in-game probability jumped from 60% to 85%. Well, you've seen teams, they even show it on ESPN sometimes, it'll be like, there's 7 minutes left in the game, their probability of winning was, 95%. Well, then with 2 minutes, their chances drop from 95 to, 62. I'm just throwing out, bullcrap numbers there. But, it's amazing to watch those metrics and how they work. And that's really what the FPI is, the Football Power Index, pulling that all the stats, all the numbers, all the probabilities of a team winning and putting together a solid performance and how they believe that the game is going to shape out. And sometimes it's not always the case. That's just what people believe is going to happen. And yes, Emperor of Rome, very good point. Don't forget to like the video. We have 4 likes right now. Get out of there, like it real quick. It boosts our analytics. A lot of people ask me, well, what's it matter? Why does it matter if you get comments? Why does it matter if you get likes? Well, because, a lot of it, when those come into play, they boost your analytics. They boost where the videos show up. They boost how high up in the search they pop up, and they help me just as a content creator. We have this thing called the YouTube Creator Studio, and I'm able to sit down. I'm able to look at the watched minutes. I'm able to look at the revenue, the likes and the subscribes. I'm able to look at everything, and that helps me kind of be able to determine what I need to do better to try to boost my analytics and to boost ratings and to boost viewership. And viewership, I will say, has declined a little bit. Now, of course, it's extremely difficult to do in the off season. I know it is expected to decline in the off season, but I will say this, guys: we are 150 subscribers away from 2,000. Right at it. We are at 1,850, so we've gained a couple these past couple days. We need to do everything in our power. I know I will be, to get us to 2,000. I would love to have that before prediction season. Of course, I will let you know when that is. By the end of this month, at least, if not then, first or second week of May, we will have a major. I'm not just saying major because I'm trying to get you excited. I'm being dead serious. It's going to be a major announcement because we have a lot of changes coming to the Gridiron Expert for prediction season. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's my favorite time of year. I'm ready to get started on it again. So we're just going to have to wait and play that by year. But help us out and subscribe, like the video, comment on the videos. Even if it's not a live stream, we'll have like normal content out there. Comment and like on those. That goes a long way for us. So last one here, we were talking about, we wonder what we look like. Last question, or last comment. Comment dude 45, 19 years old, 6 feet, skinny, slightly tan, hazel, typically short, black or very dark brown, depending on who you ask. Curly hair, despite the fact that I want straight hair. Now, I knew you were 19. I knew that. I knew you were 19 there because we've had conversations. I know you attending Rutgers in the band. Hope that's still going well, and you're doing well there. I'm sure that's why you were on TV a handful of times during the spring game. So, yeah, I knew that, but the rest of the features was not. Prince, 30, 6'1", of course, hence the name. Prince, 6'1", thick with 2 C's, body. Dark hair, brown eyes, long walks on the beach and sunsets, 90-second rise in 60 seconds. I love it. I almost feel like that was a dating profile there, Prince, but I love it. I love it. If you for mine, so we'll say, I'll give you mine real quick. You already know what I look like, but I'll give you the rest of the features. 18, about to be 19, 6'1" as well, Prince. I would like to consider myself slim body. We've got fairly dark hair here. We got, I would say, about some brown eyes as well. Trying to think, what else am I leaving out here? Looking at the rest of the features here. I think that's about it. But yeah, Mike, you're right. This is awesome. This is something else. Mike, I don't think we've gotten your description yet. Leave one out here, man. Yeah, we're always having fun on the chat, man. That's why I love this. This is what we love to do. We're about to wrap things up here because I am going to have to run to my show here on campus here rather shortly. But, I'm actually going to have to get all dressed up. But what do you think about the Bears' schedule? They hibernate in winter. Man, Prince cracking out the jokes today. I love it. I'm glad to have you back, man. We've missed you. So I'm glad to see it. But the Bears' schedule, Freeman, as many of you guys know, they did release the entire every team's NFL schedule just last night. A lot of those were actually leaked prior to the big show that they were supposed to be doing on TV. Look, I think the Bears' schedule is favorable. I mean, they don't have one of the toughest schedules in the league by any means. I think the Raiders have the benefit of having that, which is unfortunate for them. But the Bears, I want to see them succeed especially after such a heartbreaking playoff loss last year to the Eagles, a game that I think they should have won. I mean, they were so dominant practically all season. The defense, with the addition of Khalil Mack, plus Mitchell Trubisky really progressing as a quarterback. I was expecting a little bit more of a better run from the Bears, and they just fell just short, literally just short, dinking it off the upright. So, unfortunate for them, but the schedule's favorable. I think they still are probably the favorites to win the NFC North above the likes of the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions. The Lions will show major improvement under Matt Patricia there, especially adding some key pieces. The Vikings should take some major strides as well under Kirk Cousins. And then the Packers, though, with a new coach. Yes, they have Aaron Rodgers, and you can never count him out, but they lost a lot of key pieces as well. How will they fare this season? And especially with so much talent in Aaron Rodgers, it's really unfortunate to see a guy like him maybe not win another Super Bowl in his career, and that's really unfortunate. At least he does have one. He does have one, but it's unfortunate to maybe know that he might not get back to a Super Bowl, especially with the amount of talent that guy had, and the talent that the Packers did have during that Super Bowl run and the years after. Freeman, I'm glad you have a lot of fun on the live streams, man. I'm glad that you tune into these. I'm glad you guys have fun because it's not always about football. You know, we were just sitting here talking about our features, our personal physical features. So it's not always about football. We might look into doing one on Saturday because, as I mentioned, I know we won't be doing one on Sunday because of Easter. So those of you that weren't here when we announced that Easter is this Sunday, so we will not be having a live stream then. To make sure you check out Twitter, I'll be putting updates out as well. But we'll certainly be back Tuesday, if not earlier. Last couple of comments here, guys, before I have to bolt. Carolina Panthers released theirs in a video game format. Best schedule release ever. I didn't even catch that. I didn't catch that. That's how the Panthers did it. That is brilliant. I know a lot of teams were doing it differently. The Patriots did one with bad lip reading. The Cowboys did one where Jerry Jones got out there and talked, and the players each did one with like some sort of prop representing the team they were playing. Well, that is pretty cool, actually, for the Panthers. That's brilliant. Creative. And last one here, to answer your question, Emperor of Rome, are the Raiders the worst team in the NFL? As of right now, yes. Now, of course, the Cardinals have the number one pick, so you could have said the Cardinals. But the Raiders are the worst team in the NFL right now, although I will say they will not be after 5 weeks of the NFL season this year. They are making major strides. Tyrell Williams, Antonio Brown, as big of a diva as he is, as big of a distraction, and just honestly, really a cancer to a team as Antonio Brown is. He is extremely talented, and Derek Carr does not get enough credit at the quarterback position. What the Raiders decide to do with the number 4 pick in the draft will be extremely key. Will they trade up? There are rumors that they could trade up to try to get the number 1 pick. Wait and find out. Maybe they add someone on defense to bolster that defensive line or that secondary. But the Raiders will not be the worst team come week 5 of the NFL season. But as of right now, yes, they are, even though they do not have the number 1 pick. So, thank you guys very much for joining us today on this Thursday afternoon. Great discussion from spring game attendance to quarterbacks to playoffs to everybody's individual physical features. Thank you for joining us on this casual Thursday. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time here on the Gridiron Expert.